The world is a very interesting place, which contains a huge number of secrets and dangers that we are not even aware of. And among them, some places especially frighten people and often attract the attention of extreme tourists. Such places, Top F will tell you about in today's video. Grab your popcorn, we start. The Island of the Dolls, Mexico. A little south of Mexico City is the tiny island of Isla de las Muñecas, whose inhabitants never close their eyes. Dolls live here, legless, with their arms or heads torn off, smeared with mud, and hanging lifelessly on the trees. They seem to be just waiting for someone careless to approach them. Perhaps this is the most terrible place in the world. Photos partly conveys this feeling. The true story of the island, one of the most terrifying places in the world, refers us to a man named Julian Santana Barrera, who many years ago found a drowned little girl on the island, whose life he could not save. But soon he found a doll floating on the water, probably belonging to a girl. He took the doll and hung it on a tree branch as a token of remembrance for the drowned child. But the spirit of the dead did not give him rest, and Julian began to collect dolls and hang them all over the island. It was rumored that Julian was allegedly obsessed with the desire to appease the spirit of the drowned woman. It is not known whether he succeeded, but after 50 years the caretaker of the island was found drowned exactly in the same place where the girl had once died. They say that the dolls of this island whisper at night, exchange glances, and always watch the guests very carefully. Poveglia Island, Italy. An island that the Italians dislike so much that they will most likely refuse to accompany you there. According to rumors, even in Roman times, plague patients were sent to this island to isolate them so that they would not infect everyone around. So people spent their last days away from their families. The bodies of the dead were dumped in a mass grave. Therefore, they say that the soil of this island is half mud and the other half is the ashes of the dead. In the 20s of the XX century, the island welcomed new guests. A psychiatric clinic was built there, which became one of the most terrible places on the planet. If rumors are to be believed, the clinic's doctors have been doing so many nasty experiments on their patients that the number of suffering souls has only increased. It is not surprising that mental hospitals often enter the most terrible abandoned places in the world. There is no permanent communication with the island, and the Italian authorities forbid visiting this terrible place, but for a small fee of €200, there is a chance to walk in the land of the dead. Nagoro Doll Village, Japan. Another place inhabited only by dolls. The most terrible places in the world are definitely abandoned, and this abandoned village on one of the largest Japanese islands is terrifying. It is inhabited only by dolls. Once there, you will not be able to get rid of the feeling that all its inhabitants suddenly turned into toys, because they froze in the same positions in which they were caught by a strange sorcery. They are sitting at their desks, fishing, or just admiring the scenery. The former inhabitants of the village left it in search of work or simply died of old age. 11 years ago, one of the women who once lived in the village, Tsukimi Ayano, returned home and faced terrible loneliness. So she started making dolls, each of which represented a former villager. So 350 human-sized dolls became her strange companions. And they always remember the village when they talk about the most terrible abandoned places in the world. Church of St. George, Lukovo, Czech Republic. The Church of St. George, or Church with Ghosts in Lukovo, Czech Republic, has been abandoned for more than 40 years. Believing that the building was haunted, the community refused to visit the church, which was gradually falling into disrepair. Ironically, it was the ghosts who managed to revive the church. The church was consecrated in 1352 and subsequently fell victim to a large number of fires over the long years of its existence. The building has been repeatedly rebuilt and reconstructed. The last terrible event happened in 1968, which forced the congregation to leave the church for good. During the memorial service, part of the roof of the church collapsed. The community, which always suspected evil spirits and all the misfortunes of the building, was convinced that the church was haunted and left the religious building. People began to gather in the open air, afraid to cross the threshold of the haunted house. Czechoslovakia was under communist rule, so these events did not bother the authorities at all, since the government did not support the religious beliefs of the population. The following years were depressing for the small church. In addition to severe decay, everything that could be stolen from the building was stolen, including paintings, religious objects, statues, a clock on the tower, and even a bell. Everything that remained untouched was subjected to various manifestations of vandalism. Not so long ago, a group of activists decided that it was necessary to save this cultural monument of the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, they failed to raise money to restore the building. Then Jakub Hadrav, a sculpting student at the University of West Bohemia, had an idea. He sculpted ghosts to inhabit an abandoned church. He used fellow students as models, wrapping them in plastic raincoats. Over time, he created 30 ghosts who became parishioners in the Church of St. George, creating a rather frightening atmosphere in a dilapidated place. Jakub Hadrava also wanted to create a monument to the difficult history of the region. The settlement of Lakova, which was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, became part of Czechoslovakia after the First World War. In 1938, the Nazis annexed the area and declared all German-speaking residents German citizens, which subsequently led to their expulsion from Czechoslovakia after World War II. The ghosts of Jakub Hadrava resemble the ghosts of the German-speaking people who once lived here and built this church. The plan worked. Rumors about the church with ghosts spread and made their way into the international press. Since then, people have been willingly visiting the haunted church in Lakovo. Many visitors leave donations to save the church. With the collected money, they managed to repair the roof and repair the structure, giving it stability. The inhabitants of Lakova also accepted their haunted church. Gatherings no longer take place outdoors, and parishioners happily visit the church, where they sit among their friendly ghosts. Snake Island, Brazil. Off the coast of Brazil, almost 150 kilometers from the center of São Paulo, is the island of Queimada Grande, also known as the Snake Island. Human activity has bypassed it, and there is a good reason for this. Researchers have calculated that 1 to 5 snakes per 1 square meter live on the island. They feed on the numerous migratory birds that stop here to rest. This is quite enough to maintain a high population level. From 1 to 5 snakes per square meter would not sound so scary if they were non-venomous snakes 5 centimeters long. However, Queimada Grande is home to a unique species of rattlesnake, the spear-headed island Bothrops. Bothrops account for 90% of all snakebite deaths in Brazil. The island Bothrops that inhabit Snake Island grow to over half a meter in length and has a powerful, fast-acting venom that melts the flesh around its bites. This type of snake is so dangerous that the Brazilian authorities have categorically banned anyone from visiting the island except for a few scientific groups. Residents of the coastal towns near Queimada Grande love to tell 2 creepy stories related to this island. In one of them, an unsuspecting fisherman lands on an island to pick bananas. Naturally, snakes bite him. He manages to get back to his boat, where he suddenly dies from the effects of snake venom. Sometime later, the fisherman is found in a boat in a huge pool of blood. Another story tells of the last lighthouse keeper and his family. One night, several snakes crawled through their window and attacked the man, his wife, and 3 children. In a desperate attempt to escape, they ran to their boat but were bitten by snakes lurking in the branches of trees. Marcelo Duarte, a biologist who has visited Snake Island more than 20 times, says local stories about 1 to 5 snakes per square meter are a bit exaggerated. But even this does not reassure. Even with such a number of them, you will still be literally 2 steps away from death. To date, legal landing on the island is possible only with permission from the Brazilian Navy. For tourists and residents, the entrance to the island is closed due to the threat to their lives. Abandoned Asylum, Parma, Italy. The psychiatric hospital in the city of Parma was closed in 1978 by order of the government. People left the building, leaving everything: household items, equipment, tools, various appliances, furniture, wheelchairs, clothes, shoes, personal items. All this remained in place for many years. There they are today, dilapidated and dusty, which creates an incredible atmosphere of the presence of someone or something, because a person's fantasy is always able to finish a terrible or sad story. The psychiatric institution in Parma today is popular thanks to one artist. His name is Herbert Baglione, and he is from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Herbert works in graffiti style, paints the roofs and walls of buildings. Thanks to him, the abandoned clinic became an unusual and even more interesting place. Herbert Baglione chose the Parma hospital in order to create his project there, called 1000 Shadows. He painted gloomy shadows inside the abandoned building. This project, which is very unusual in its essence, brought fame to both the artist and the Parma hospital. Today, in the midst of the chaos of various things that were left behind by patients and medical staff, gloomy shadows hover throughout the psychiatric hospital, which create a strong sense of otherworldly presence. Drawn mysterious shadows roam everywhere, on shabby walls, on a peeling ceiling, on the floor covered with years of dust, in all rooms, offices, and corridors, near wheelchairs, tables, beds, chairs, and wardrobes. The artist managed to convey the feelings experienced by patients: loneliness, suffering, and fear. Ghostly shadows seem to be trying to hide in the rooms, as if they are looking for a way out of this refuge of disease and death. Another minute, and their groans and terrible cries will be heard. Before the creation of this art project, the abandoned mental hospital in Parma did not differ from other abandoned buildings. Manchac Swamps, Louisiana, USA. Manchac Swamps, the realm of ghosts and crocodiles, are insanely beautiful if, of course, the aesthetics of decadence captivates you. According to legend, at the beginning of the 20th century, the area was not so swampy, but everything changed after in 1915 the inhabitants of the village located in Manchac caught and executed Julia Brown, a voodoo sorceress, in a fire. Before her death, she cursed the tormentors, "I will die, but one day you will all leave after me." The witch's words were only laughed at, but a few days after her death, the swamps began to expand. 2 months later, a hurricane hit the village, destroying all the houses. Hundreds of people died. To this day, the corpses of hurricane victims sometimes float to the surface. The thickness of the swamp does not allow them to rot. For some reason, even alligators do not touch their remains. There were witnesses who heard someone in the bowels of the swamp screaming at night in a disgusting creaky voice, and some claimed to have seen the ghost of Julia. Another local legend is the werewolf Rougarou, whose howl echoes across the marshes every night. Farmers often find dead cows and birds in the paddocks in the morning, corpses as if tormented by a predator. Death Path on Mount Huashan, China. Death Path on Mount Huashan, an extreme path to the sacred head of mountain for Taoists with 5 peaks. Until the end of the last century, the Flower Mount served as a place of solitude and prayer for hermits, but the tourist boom has changed everything dramatically. Today, every Chinese seeks to climb up at least once in his life to receive the blessing of his ancestors. On weekends, whole crowds roam the ridges and gorges. A lot of people come here for a powerful dose of adrenaline. Gradually, the method of testing the strength of the spirit of novices turned into an attraction for adventurers. The lowest, northern peak of Mount Huashan can be climbed by stairs or in a cable car. From here, relatively safe trails begin, leading to the rest of the peaks, surrounded by rocks of extraordinary beauty. However, the one that was laid along the walkways of 2 to 3 boards on iron crutches driven into a bare cliff became famous. You need to move over a bottomless abyss, pressing your whole body against a sheer wall. Chains are hung along the trail, to which tourists fasten safety belts, but this is a tribute to the times. For hundreds of years, the monks have been climbing without any devices, guided by faith alone. A new custom has already been born. Young couples walk along the path together to prove the strength of their feelings and snap a lock on a chain with a red silk ribbon where their names are written in gold. The trekking lasts about 20 minutes. In the middle of the way there is a recreation area where a photographer is waiting for the thrill seekers. The path leads to a dead end. You will have to return along it, taking a breath in the gazebo at the top. Rumors of countless victims may be greatly exaggerated, but the abysses and the wind ripping you off the rock are real. That's all for today. Mr. Top F was with you. Thanks for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if you haven't done it yet, and turn on notifications on the channel to catch all new videos. Bye.